So,
Hello everyone, we have Harish here who cleared PMP recently. Harish Aggarwal is one more success story is coming up here. So he has a lot of story there. You can see his writing there. Thank you, lockdown. You want to thank first lockdown, guys. It gave me an opportunity to sit and read for myself, right? That's pretty important. Thank you, my organization,
correct.
senior colleagues, good help. And thank you to the family. That's really good. I like the way he put an order because I see we have to thank family very importantly because they are the one behind us who make everything happen. Sometimes we take it for granted. We have to understand that they are there, right? So with this, we'll go to Arish, who is very happy and excited. Let's listen to him, his success story. There we have Arish.
Very excited, Shriram, and thanks for having me talk about it. I'm really excited, very happy. In fact, this is sort of an achievement for me because for the last 5-6 years I've been doing small courses on digital platform, but this one is up there in terms of validating your level of knowledge. You're testing your patience. So this one is definitely up there in terms of my achievements for sure.
Right, right. I know. This has its level. It needs a good amount of commitment. You cannot just walk and get the certificate. So, how is your learning journey in the sense of reading habits, or how do you pick it up?
Yeah. So maybe I'll just take 2 minutes to sort of give a background about myself, and that will help a lot of aspirants in terms of connecting where I've come from, and what sort of preparations I did. That will help, I feel. So just to talk about myself. So I'm a chartered accountant by background. So post to close to 14 years of work ex post my initial 3-4 years were within the finance domain exactly, and then post that I actually moved into a lot of SAP implementations, and that was the start of my journey into the IT field. And for the last 5-6 years I've been now sort of managing various digital projects. So I work with a metal and mining company in India, and we're doing a lot of stuff in terms of digital transformation, and that's where I've been handling a lot of projects. So I thought it's better to have, so I've not had any sort of an IT background in that sense. Pretty much the transition from my finance to IT was purely into practical aspect only. So I thought it's better to have an IT sort of a background, and that's where the start of this year around Jan Feb I thought let's do a sort of an IT sort of education which can sort of help me in my role for sure. And that's where I zeroed down it on PMP. And I started you the office is very busy for that matter. So I started around February in terms of sort of go to some classroom training. So initially I zeroed down on classroom because I thought it will be very tough. I had no sort of background into IT, frankly speaking. So I thought it's better to take a classroom session, and that's where I based out of Gurgaon. So in Gurgaon I went to a local center, did a PMP sort of a classroom training for 3 to 4 weeks, and
Right.
then the lockdown happened, and life changed forever. And March, April, pretty much by that time, the lockdown happened. Office became altogether different. So the plans that I had was initially do this course by maybe May, June or something, but then everything went away. And then pretty much like 3-4 months passed like anything. You had to spend a lot of time at work, and home was altogether different. So yeah, everything changed for sure. And then somewhere then in July late or September I had again regained. Obviously I had done that classroom session. So there was always in the back of your mind that you have to clear that PMP.
Yeah.
And that's when I restarted altogether. So I had gone through those classroom sessions for which I had no view now, because those were gone, like 3-4 months had passed. So I had no view now. So I had no view in terms of how do I reinitiate. And that's where I one of my batchmates, I had connected with him, and he's a good friend now, Rohit Khanna. So I call him as a PhD in PMP research. Any sort of online stuff on PMP, he would know it for sure. So then I went to him, asked him how do I sort of reinitiate the whole stuff. And before reaching out to him, and in fact, sort of for 1 or 2 weeks, I had read PMBOK, just sort of started with PMBOK, and it was so boring, and I could not, relate to what I had sort of studied also in those 3-4 weeks. It was all over the place. I was all over the place. It was running out of my head actually, and that's where
Right.
I called him. He told me, we do this. You do this course by Joseph Phillips on Udemy. That should be the starting point. So I started with that, frankly, and it was helpful in that sense. I could do a lot of activity. While listening to that course. For example, I have small kids. I could take them on a stroll and listen that for hours. That was the benefit, because opening books in front of kids is very tough. So those kind of benefits happen, and I
Correct.
listened to the whole course. But frankly speaking, I could not make much sense in terms of how do I relate it back. And that's where I got introduced to Rita, and I started. Till that date, I hadn't PMBOK. Frankly speaking, PMBOK I had studied for 1 week. I had no clue. So then I started with Rita. And with Rita, what I did was I again went back to Joseph Philip course on Udemy, listened to one knowledge area, and then studied that chapter in the book. That was my sort of combination. And then for like 3-4 weeks, I completed that.
Perfect. Perfect. So how many full exams you took before you go to the main exam?
Yeah. So after that, pretty much I went into mocks. I thought I am ready. I straight away went into mocks. Various mocks are being offered on Udemy platform, and did that, and I was scoring around 65-70%. So I thought I am prepared. I can go away with the pretty much with the exam. And then I sort of registered for the PMP exam, and enrolled for the PMP mock test. And that was the nightmare for me. When I gave the first PMP mock test, I gave around 40 questions, and I was hardly 4 or 5 were right of them. That was an eye opener for me. So altogether, this whole understanding that I had got on the Joseph Philip course and Rita, it went like trash. So I thought there was something missing. I realized that. And that's where I started researching myself this time, and thought, what should I do? Because the one sort of understanding that I had got was, I had good grasp on individual concepts. So for example, within collect requirements, what does WBS do? I would have full grasp of that understanding. If there are questions around that area, I would answer that. But if there are questions around intermingling with different processes, I would not have any view, because I had not got those developed in my mind. And that's where I got introduced to your course on Udemy, which was a 21-day crash course. I started that, and that was the pretty start point. And I got sort of an understanding in terms of how those process groups, how those knowledge areas are integrating within oneself.
Mhm.
I think that's the main point. And post that, I sort of gave a few more mocks. I had no clue about prepcast by then. And then post doing your course, I in fact hadn't got in touch with you on WhatsApp. I was in fact hesitating in the start, because I had not done the regular course from you. So I had done just that Udemy course, and I thought, how would you sort of respond? But there were few queries also which you responded very jointly. So thanks for that, sir. And then the mentorship really started, in terms of how do I sort of do next, what should I do next? Because till that time, I was not exposed to this whole IT and PMP community. And that's where you made me join that group, and the whole PMP. One thing I can tell you, this PMP community is really helpful, really supportive. And you just send an SMS or WhatsApp, they would do anything to respond back. That's really helpful.
Right.
So after that, yeah, so post doing these things, I would say, i, I had not gone through PMBOK till now also. So that's where I spoke with you, and you told me to do the prepcast, because I had developed good understanding by now in terms of how those process groups work, how those intermingling of those process groups work. And then post doing prepcast, so before the exam, in fact last 7 days, my schedule before the exams was, I in the morning I gave the prepcast first test, and in the evening, the first prepcast I gave in the morning for 4 hours, and then the entire evening and night I went just to analyze what I did wrong. I think that really helped me, frankly speaking. And I would, suggest that as a learning for everybody, for every aspirant. Whenever do you do, prepcast, I think spend ample time in terms of analyzing. I think that's an important activity, because you just tend to give an prepcast and then, go, straight away want to go to the second prepcast because you want to see that improvement happening. But I think you have to take that grind in terms of understanding where you made that mistake. In fact, in the entire journey, sir, I had not made any notes also, frankly speaking. But the only notes that I made was in when I was doing those prepcasts. So when I opened the first prepcast, I understand this is the mistake. I just wrote one liner, in the notes, what mistake I did. And, before actually going, so I had, over this 7 prepcast that I gave, so I had made around, 8 pages of these one liner notes, the mistakes basically. And on the day when I was giving the exam, I never opened any other book. I just opened these notes, these 7, 8 pages of, one liners, and just went through them, nothing else, frankly speaking.
That's pretty good work from you. So happy to see your preparation, your mock exams. That also you come from a background of chartered accountant, right? One of the toughest exam in India. Yeah, okay, in accountancy, it's not chartered account is not that easy. Okay, coming from that kind of finance domain, the toughest exam. How do you able to relate with this kind of a managerial and a leadership model? Was it connecting? You started feeling that there is some relation. You are able to get it out.
Yeah, yeah, of course, Sriram. See, frankly speaking, post my chartered accountancy, for the last 14 years, I have been handling a lot of these program management sort of roles. In fact, doing large level of stakeholder management for a total outsourcing contract, which is huge for an organization point of view. So, the practical aspects, obviously, I've been dealing with them. I've been, managing that for a while now. But obviously, reading about them, sort of again going back to your work and sort of relating it back, obviously that helped me, in terms of the frameworks that are being talked about in the course, so I could relate back to, what I did in the work. One thing I can tell you, sir, this course, actually is 50% testing your knowledge, and 50% is about testing your patience, testing your focus, testing your ability, other abilities apart from the knowledge. So which is pretty much unlike the previous ones. So for example, chartered accountancy, if you talk about it, is pure, testing your knowledge. Obviously there are other aspects, but it's in so small quantities. But this course, I would say, knowledge is 50%, but they are actually testing these other abilities which are more important. So, over this period, I would say, you will have to develop that. And, I would also like to sort of, in terms of my learnings, it's pretty important, as part of the journey, everyone should actually give importance in terms of understanding your own self. I think that's pretty important, because, the SWOT analysis that we study, I think we should do it for our own self, because then only you can understand what are your strengths and how do you leverage that, and what are your weaknesses, how do you ensure that those don't matter too much in the exam. I think that is important, and then you can sort of define that journey that you have. I'm not saying my journey is the best journey. In fact, there have been mistakes, while doing the prep cast, while I was sort of understanding what are my mistakes, there were points when, I could not sort of get a view from the pepcast. So I went back to Pimbok. At that point only, I picked up Pimbok for the first time, and I went back to Pimbok and understood how good that book was. Because, Rita, I think I can tell you there is a flaw. For example, there, the input output to the tool, the ITOS framework, you can't get a view holistically from Rita. You can obviously get a view in terms of what this concept is, what does it mean. You can understand that. But Primbok, you get that entire holistic view in terms of what is this input, what is this output, what is the tools that you use. So you get that view. and I understood this, what lovely book this is, and I missed reading it all together. But just that, I didn't had time to sort of now go back and study it again altogether, because it then would need another 4 or 5 weeks. And in prep class, I was getting good marks in that sense, so I didn't want to go back to that. But that's pretty much one of the mistakes that I did.
Oh, okay, okay. Sounds good, good. Super, Barish. So happy to hear a big list of items. What happened to you? And was it a center-based exam or you went with a proctor exam? What model exam? Your volume is
So I
yeah,
Hello.
yeah. Now good, now good. Proceed.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm based out of Ludhiana, and I went to Chandigarh. I was always sure, I can't do it at home, because, I have small kids. There is this problem, there is that problem. So I was very sure, it will always be a center-based exam. So I went to the center, and it was a decent center in Chandigarh. So it was like 2 hours drive from my place, and I went there in the morning, and then started with my exam at 11. And I was pretty cool, I was sure, if the test is is in line with what I've done in the prep cast, I will definitely pass this exam. So I was pretty confident about that. And initial 5-10 questions when I saw, it was in line with what prep cast test I had given. So I was pretty confident at that point itself that I'll be able to clear it. In fact, yeah, so I the 200 questions, initial 89 I completed, and I spent more time. I completed it around 138 minutes of remaining, and then the final 200 I was able to do around 14 minutes of spare time. And I just submitted it. I didn't rechecked also. I had marked at least 14-15 questions to go back and recheck. But I was pretty confident, by that time, that I will pass for sure. And I just straight away submitted the exam.
Super good, super good. Super great, Harish. Happy to hear a lot of things from you. I know it's a long journey for you in the sense of preparation, checking out your friends, coming out. Thanks for trusting us and being along with us for your success journey. And we wish more success on your line, because happy to meet a chartered accountant with a PMP as a leadership. Both combining together, your career can go pretty high in your field where you are, right? So I'm so excited to see you success and keep winning more as a good leader in the organization. Right.
Thank you so much, Shriram. And in fact, I would like to highlight ShriLearning was altogether there, as part of this journey. And Rahul, particularly, I reached out to him, and you, obviously, sir. I had no sort of a regular course background with you, so I was pretty sort of not sure, how do I initiate that discussion and how would you react to that. But all of the guys were pretty supportive. In fact, the entire PPT was very supportive. Never ever I felt that I was outsider, and in that sense. One more learning I would, sort of want to sort of highlight, and for all the experiences, I think it is important we get one buddy. I had one buddy, because what happens is every day there are a lot of up and downs as part of studying this course.
Right.
You give one mock test and you don't score well, and you feel so depressed, because you have gained that knowledge of understanding, and then you are not scoring in the exam. So and two problems that I face, I am not too sure other aspirants would also be facing or not. But one is obviously, whether the score that you are getting in the prep class or in the mocks, is it enough?
Mm, mm. Yeah.
And second problems that we face is, in terms of uh, you've read the entire stuff, you've read the books, you've done mock. The scores are not increasing at one point of time, so you don't understand what should we do next. You are so bored with now picking up books. You've gone through that grind now, so you're not sure how do you increase that score. So these are the two challenges I face, frankly speaking. And having a buddy, who understands you, who understands those, your strengths and weaknesses, and gives an honest opinion, I think in this journey that helps. I would suggest everybody, if you can have a partner who is also doing the similar course on this journey, and have a good connect with him, I think that is really helpful.
Perfect. Great. Having buddies is really helpful. Great. Super. Thanks a lot, Harish, for coming up here to give some valuable inputs on your journey. And a lot of inputs I can get out of it. And this video is going to help many people who are preparing for the examination. And thanks for being here and good wishes for your success. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Shriram. Thank you so much.